Welcome to Calm in the Chaos Interfaith Center. I was catless, and since I live on a farmette, cats have good lives here doing what they do naturally, hunting and running freely. The local animal shelter is one of the most beautiful, well-managed animal refuges I've ever seen. And upon speaking to the shelter's barn cat expert, I was told there was a guy who had an eye infection, but his last meds were Wednesday, so if I come on Wednesday afternoon, he could be my newest barn kitty. I went on Wednesday, and sure enough, there he was. As he was placed on the bench beside me in the barn cat room, the woman said, "I'll be back in a few minutes to see if you've bonded." Bonded? Hardly. I was just looking for a barn cat, not a TV snuggle buddy. But when she returned, I assured her that we could be compatible farm mates. And her reply was, "Good, because the only other cat we have is that guy," pointing to an upper-level cage with a solid black cat peering at us. I thought, and she said, "We'll probably never place him." I knew instantly what she meant. I thrust the healed eye infection into her arms, nodded at the upper cage, and said, "Give me that guy." Humans have demonized God's creation for most of history. Back in the Genesis days, chapter 3, the serpent receives the punishment of having to crawl on his belly forever because of the crafty ways he communicated with Eve. Snakes are still on many people's lists of do not touch and kill it if you see it on our property. In other news, did you know that in 1232, Pope Gregory IX warned the world about the evils of witchcraft? And in his warning, he included a specific piece about black cats being the devil in disguise. To be fair, he also included other animals such as frogs, but the people of the day picked up on that cat piece, and anti-cat paranoia, particularly of black cats, grew fast, and the people killed cats with a vengeance. As to be expected, the rat population exploded, contributing to the bubonic plague decades later. We still live among people who believe black cats and black dogs are evil. In 2000, the black cat, black dog syndrome was recognized as a real occurrence, as black animals are significantly overlooked at adoption sites. And in 2013, an outcome of this study was to create Black Cat Appreciation Day on August 17th every year, and Black Dog Appreciation Day on October 1st. You may be asking at this point, what does this have to do with my spiritual growth? Well, today is Samhain, or All Saints' Eve, or Halloween, however you want to play it. And that means there might still be people who will be unkind to an all-black animal tonight, particularly a cat. Superstitions and myths play a significant role in this attitude towards some of God's animals. And those stories, those myths, are human constructs. They're not of God. Saint Columban, in his first sermon, said, "If you wish to know the Creator, come to know His creatures." Well, for those of us who know and love animals within our homes or on our farms, it's easy to see God in the unconditional love of a dog, or the nuzzling of a soft cat, or the beautiful face of a horse. When we see a spiritual model for the godlike kinship between human and beast, we often picture Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis is often shown with a bird in his hand and animals around his feet, because he was so in tune with the natural world. He's the patron saint of animals and of the environment. And he actually preached sermons to animals. From him, we see the original Earth Day advocate. as he knew without doubt that every animal was a brother or sister to each of us. Let's turn to some sacred writings about our relationship with animals. We begin in the Bible with Genesis, the story of creation. In chapter 1, verses 25 and 6, we hear these words. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. Unfortunately, the translations that use the word dominion over have allowed some humans to believe that we are superior to the other species, that we're then allowed to make decisions about breeding and slaughtering, eating, and controlling all the animals on the earth without regard to the fact that we're all sharing the resources of this planet. The translation that I use more frequently says, God spoke, let us make human beings in our image, make them reflecting our nature so they can be responsible for the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the cattle, and yes, earth itself, and every animal that moves on the face of the earth. Being responsible for the animals and the earth, not lording over them. It's not only more humane, it's the only way for us to create a sustainable way to live on this planet. Let's move into the book of Job, chapter 12, verses 7 through 10. But ask the beasts, and they will teach you. The birds of the heavens, and they will tell you. Or the bushes of the earth, and they will teach you. The fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind. Well, there you have it. In God's hand is the life of every living thing, including us. We're all attached because we are all offspring of the same creative force. You, me, our pets, the birds at the feeder, the deer in the headlights, the fish in the pond. We're all sharing the same water, the same air, the same sunlight and darkness. And that's why we cannot allow superstition to play with our minds. A black cat has no more mystery than a tabby. A black Labrador has no less of a loving heart and playful countenance than a golden retriever. We humans have created some powerful ways of relating to animals. Of course, there are people who still believe in sacrificing animals to the gods, but I believe that is not the way to create a healthy relationship to the Great Spirit. Back to the Bible. When animals die, do they go to heaven? Well, for that to be a discussion, at least one of us would have to believe that heaven is actually a place to go. So let me read Isaiah chapter 11, verses 6 through 9, and then we'll revisit that question. The wolf will romp with the lamb, the leopard sleep with the kid. Calf and lion will eat from the same trough, and a little child will tend them. Cow and bear will graze the same pasture. Their calves and cubs grow up together, and the lion eats straw like the ox. The nursing child will crawl over rattlesnake dens. The toddler stick his hand down the hole of a serpent. Neither animal nor human will hurt or kill on my holy mountain. The whole earth will be brimming with knowing God alive, a living knowledge of God, ocean deep, ocean wide. Did you hear that? A living knowledge of God. That's what animals are for us. When the predator and the prey can live in peace with one another, we will be on the road to recreating Eden, the perfect place. God's ideal place. Returning to our question about animals being in heaven, well, animals are like humans in that regard. If they are in communion with God, they're already in heaven. Heaven's going on right here. I turn next to some words from an insightful and loving poet, Mary Oliver. She muses about the natural world, animals, and plants in this poem from her collection called Swan, Poems and Prose Poems. Ordinarily, I go to the woods alone, with not a single friend, for they are all smilers and talkers and therefore unsuitable. I don't really want to be witnessed talking to the catbirds or hugging the old black oak tree. I have my way of praying, as you no doubt have yours. Besides, when I am alone, I can become invisible. I can sit on the top of a dune, as motionless as an uprise of weeds, until the foxes run by unconcerned. I can hear the almost unbearable sound of the roses singing. If you have ever gone to the woods with me, I must love you very much. And a poem from Wendell Berry titled The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me and I wake in the night, at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not take their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. On this holy day, All Saints' Eve, Halloween, Samhain, the veil between worlds is thin. Some of us who are living can access the world more easily and communicate with the other world on this night, but it is not to be feared. It is a beautiful thing to remind us that heaven and earth are all rolled together. If you have ever put an animal to sleep, you know how very connected we are, and that connection helps us to know the heart of God. If you wish to know the Creator, come to know His creatures. Let us pray. Holy God, divine intelligence, loving essence, on this All Saints' Eve, help us to remember those who have left this earthly form and have left their mark on our hearts. We ask that you continue to embrace those who've passed on to their immortal shore as we whisper their names. On this night, we may hear of evil and darkness in new ways, but help us to be the lights in this darkness. Help us to counter evil with the love and grace that you daily show to us. And help us to not be afraid. We are grounded in the knowledge that the world is unfolding as it should, unfolding in the way that will lead us to new ways of being, where all sentient beings are respected and honored. We come to you in gratitude this day. Help us to notice tiny acts of kindness, small gestures of love, and help us to believe that we have enough. Hear our whispered prayers of gratitude. So many of our friends are ill in body or spirit. Hear us as we whisper their names as prayers for their return to health. and with all that is holy, we say, Amen. Our music recommendation today is the text, All Things Bright and Beautiful. It's sung by children, conducted by the composer, John Rutter.